Hello friends, warm welcome to another session of GST Quick Info Bites. Today we will try to understand types of supply from GST perspective. As I've mentioned them in the slide, it will not be wrong if I say that the first five types of supply, that is taxable supply, zero rated supply, exempt supply, nil rated supply, and non GST supplies are based on the tax treatment. They're classified as supply on the basis of the tax treatment. And the next two types of supply, that is sixth and the seventh one, that is interstate supply and intrastate supply are classified on the basis of location of the supply. And moving forward to the eighth one, that is continuous supply, is based on the pattern of the supply. And the last two, that is ninth and 10th one, composite supply and mixed supply, are classified based on the combination of the supply. Let's move on in studying each of these in depth. First, the first slide displays five types of supplies which are based on the tax treatment. The first one is exempt supply. Exempt supply means supply of goods or services or both which are not taxable under GST. These supplies are exempt by the virtue of notification issued by the government. It may be exempt either absolutely or subject to certain conditions. One more important point worth to be mentioned here is no ITC, that is input tax credit, is allowed in case of exempt supply. Just to quote few examples, it may be the daily essentials like bread, fruits, milk, curds are categorized as exempt supply currently. Moving on to the second category as displayed in the slide, that is zero rated supply. Well, zero rated supply is basically a supply of any goods or services or both on which no tax is payable but input tax credit pertaining to that supply is admissible. Friends, I will repeat that ITC, that is input tax credit pertaining to that supply, can be availed in case of zero rated supply. Well, the only two supplies which are right now considered as zero rated supply are, to quote those two, the first one is supply by the way of export of goods are treated as zero rated supply. Second one, supply of goods or services or both to special economic zone, that is CEZ, more commonly known as, to the special economic zone unit or the developer, are treated as zero rated supply. Only these two types of supply currently are categorized as zero rated supply. Any supply in terms of export of goods and any supply to CEZ unit, special economic zone unit, or the developer are categorized as zero rated supply. More important, ITC can be claimed in case of zero rated supply. Moving on to the third category, that is non-GST supply. Non-GST supply are those supplies which are not under the purview of GST. It is not within the ambit of GST, are termed as non-GST supply. To quote few of them, it is petrol, diesel, natural gas, alcohol for human consumption right now are outside the ambit of GST. These supplies are categorized as non-GST supply. Moving on to the fourth category, that is taxable supply. Any supply which taxable supply refers to any supply of goods, services, or both which are chargeable to GST. Very important point to be noted here is ITC, that is input tax credit, is allowed on input or the capital goods purchased with regard to the taxable supply. Moving on to the last category, that is last category under this slide, that is nil rated supply. Nil rated supply, as the name itself says, in the case of nil rated supply, tax rate is 0. One more important point to be noted is ITC is not allowed in case of nil rated supply. Daily essentials will fall under this category, like grain, salt, jaggery, etc. are categorized as nil rated supply. Though zero rated supply and nil rated supply sounds same, in terms of tax rate being 0, both are same or similar, but there's a slight difference wherein ITC can be claimed in case of zero rated supply, which cannot be claimed in case of nil rated supply. And only two supplies, specifically the export and the supply to the cess units, are categorized as zero rated supply, and the essential supplies are categorized as nil rated supply. Let's move on to the next two types of supply, that is categorized on the basis of location. A very common one, that is interstate supply and intrastate supply. Now, to deal with the first one, that is interstate supply, supply from one state or union territory to another state or union territory will constitute as interstate supply. Basically, the checkpoint will be the location of the supplier, and the place of supplier are two different states or union territory in case of interstate supply. Just to quote an example, if a supply from Maharashtra is made to Punjab, here the location of the supplier and the place of supplier different, so it will be termed as interstate supply. Coming to the concept of intrastate supply, any supply of goods, services, or both within the state or union territory, it would be termed or treated as intrastate supply. In short, the location of the supplier and the place of supply are within the same state in case of intrastate supply. The next one is based on the pattern of the supply, that is continuous supply. Continuous supply of services means a supply of services which is provided or agreed to be provided continuously or on a recurrent basis, for that matter, under a contract. The very important term here is under a contract, is called as continuous supply. Of course, the contract period must be more than 3 months with the obligation to make a periodic payment. Payment should be made periodically, and the contract should be more than 3 months. Now, the question arises as to the purpose for identifying the continuous supply. Well, it is very important to identify any supply to be continuous supply in order to find the time of supply. Moving on to the next category, that is supply on the basis of combination, would be composite supply and mixed supply. There are a lot of common factors between these two, as you can view in the slide as well. The common factors may be supply is made by a taxable person to a recipient. That is a common factor in both composite and mixed supply, and it is a combination of two or more supplies. In both the cases, it will be combination of two or more supplies. Now, if the combination of two or more supplies of goods or services is naturally bundled, let me repeat, if it is naturally bundled, then it would constitute as composite supply. If it is not naturally bundled, then it would fall under the category of mixed supply. Now let me repeat it, friends. The checkpoint for any combination, supply of combination of goods to be captioned as composite supply would be naturally bundled combination. If it is not naturally bundled, then it would fall under the category of mixed supply. Now the question that is quite natural is how to find whether out of two combination of two or more supply goods, whether it is naturally bundled in the course of business. Well, friends, there is no jacket formula which can be applied to determine whether this combination is naturally bundled or not in the ordinary course of business. Each case, each case has to be individually examined in the backdrop of certain factors to categorize it to be a composite supply or mixed supply. Just to mention or quote few factors, determining factors to ascertain whether any supply is composite, whether it is, naturally bundled or not, would be rather the first one may be like perception of the recipient of the goods or services matters the most. If the recipient expects that such a supply to be in a package itself, then it can be categorized as naturally bundled. If in that particular area of the business, if in that particular field or area of business, majority of the suppliers provide similar bundle of goods, then it would as well be categorized as naturally bundled. It may be one more determining factor. Other factors may be elements in that combination are advertised as a package itself. That may be another criteria. Or if the elements are not available separately, if the elements are not available or sold separately, then also it can add to the factor that it is naturally bundled. If any combination doesn't fit into any of these criteria of ascertaining to be naturally bundled, then it would automatically fall under the category of mixed supply. In short, if it does not constitute as composite supply, then it would naturally fall under the category of mixed supply. Let me take a few examples to make it a little clear. If you want to pick up the first one, if any goods are packed, transported with insurance, then such supply would constitute as composite supply. Just to take the second one for that matter, if a supply of package, gift package for that matter, consists of canned food, cakes, chocolates, juice, dry fruits, then though it is supplied though it is supplied as a single price, this would constitute as a mixed supply because each of these items could as well be supplied separately and it is not dependent on each other. This would constitute as mixed supply. Thank you, friends. Thank you for watching this video. I kindly request you to like, share, and most important, please subscribe to this channel and keep us motivated. Thank you.